I'll make sure not to say that, Stephen. You my father, who are poorer than poor, and a wee flat in the West End. You know. Well, hello and welcome in to this Monday's entertainment news. I am Jonathan C. Walsh. The C stands for Christopher, in case you were wondering, not Cecil, as my sister used to call me back in the day. Stuck with me, mentally traumatised me. That I'm your host on the show tonight, whatever that means. To my left is Stephen, if you can't read. John McLaughlin, he's the co-host on the show /stream/ whatever tonight. Remember to click starting soon off and the intro off. I clicked it back on. Stephen, we're here to discuss Andor. I've been that lazy that I can't even be arsed, or couldn't be arsed, past tense, creating a graphic bar. It was threw together rather hastily. You informed me that the presumed final trailer for Andor Season 2 dropped. We've done a reaction to it, and now we're doing a discussion of the trailer Season 2, what it could mean for Disney, for Lucasfilm, for Star Wars, for everything linked to Cassian Andor, the man, the myth, the legend, the show. Stephen, what was your thoughts on the trailer? It was very short. It was 1 minute and 22 seconds long. I think you've got maybe a slightly different view to me. I didn't mind it, I have to say. I thought it was...
It was okay, John.
It was fine. I thought it was all right.
I think once people see my reaction, they'll realise there's not much of a reaction, because one of the things we discussed before we even hit the play button was that we don't really need this, because we know where it's going, we know where it ends up, and we know, obviously, from the teaser trailer what's happening anyway, where we're at in terms of the timeline, how close we are to the events of Rogue One. And it was also explained that this would be, I think, something that they were going to break the episodes into the way they did with Season 1, and sort of, I think it was like 3 trilogies or whatever it was, or 4 trilogies in Season 1, and they're going to kind of try and do that format again, where it feels like 3 different films on the one series.
But more frenetic.
Yeah, but it has to be, John. We talked about this obviously in reaction, but it has to be frenetic. It has to be on point, and it has to hit the ground running. It has to stick landing as well at the very end. I'm sure it will, because they know where to land in this one. It's not like they're making it up as they go along. They know where they have to be. How close it will be to the events of Rogue One is another thing.
I think it should bleed right in. I think it should bleed right in. Maybe even you suggested Galen Ussel is potentially going to pop up. They could maybe do something where... I'm trying to remember the initial shot of Rogue One. I think it was a flashback to Galen being visited by Ben Mendelsohn's director Krennic, and they take him away, don't they? I want to say, and obviously Jin maybe witnesses this. I don't know if I'm tripping. It's been a while since I've seen Rogue One, but they could maybe utilise him having a cameo at the end, and it bleeds right in to that shot. I would have it going right into Rogue One.
Yeah, I mean, that would be beginning to Rogue One in a sense, but that part of it is obviously it's a flashback. It's not obviously present day, so it probably couldn't work because of the ages of Cassian Andor. But I know what you mean. If they can just link, maybe we see Cassian, meeting up with the rebellion, and they talk about, Jin or whatever, the daughter of Galen or whatever, just those little links. You saw it in, I'm trying to remember what it was. We've seen it in so many things. In fact, they did it in Rogue One, didn't they? They obviously with Mon Mothma and Leia's father. They hinted they were going to get Leia involved in the plot. At this point, obviously, it was just little things like that. And I think that's what they'll probably do in this as well. They'll probably do those little links where you might see the likes of Cassian refer to her or Mon Mothma. We need to obviously get her on side, because we need to draw out Galen. Because obviously I think that's the key to Rogue One. It's drawing him out.
Did we ever
He's the one.
I can't remember, Stephen. Was Bail Organa ever in Andor? I don't think he appeared in Andor, did he? Not even as a cameo. Is it Jimmy Smits? Is that the actor?
Yeah, Jimmy Smits.
I don't think he was ever in Andor, was he? That'd be a great guy to get in, even as a cameo. I know he's older again now, but we did see him, didn't we? Was he not in Obi-Wan?
He was in Obi-Wan as well.
The adoptive father of Leia. So
Yeah.
I wonder if we could maybe get. I mean, I just like the way they connect it all. The sort of pioneering figures of the Rebel Alliance, because we've already got Mon Mothma, we've got Luthen, who we didn't know about until this moment, and that I think speaks volumes about what's going to happen to Luthen. I think you already have the spoiler. We spoke long about one of the great aspects of Rogue One, season 1 of Andor, was the way that they introduced important characters as a sort of side serving to Andor himself, and that's where you got the jeopardy, because you can't have jeopardy with Andor because you know how his story plays out, and it was a great way of doing it, introducing these other characters who you then bond with and you're concerned for their safety, and that's how you sort of have your jeopardy in it. But I think the fact that we've not got Luthen present in the original trilogy tells you that you didn't make it out. I mean, unless he's just disappeared off into the fucking horizon and had a sort of retirement off in some, I don't know, Act 2, Tatooine, pish-stained homestead sort of existence like Ben Kenobi and Luke, then he's got to be dead. I mean, not everyone's going to make it out of this TV show. They just can't, because they're not...
They can't. It's a similar format to Rogue One bleeding into A New Hope, but there's going to be death. There's going to be a lot of deaths and characters perhaps maybe that we... I would say Luthen is definitely one we've attached to, but there's other ones like the Cyril character and
Cyril,
Hedra.
Cyril's an interesting one, Stephen. I thought he was one of the more interesting ones in that trailer. Very brief look at him, but he's wormed his way right up into a position of influence. I mean, he's more of a snake than Director Krennic.
Read that right, John. I can't read him to the extent I don't know whether he's going to turn.
I just think he's a weasel.
I think one of these guys that sees the world, or the galaxy in this case, very black and white. There's no grey areas with him, and it's a matter of fact. That's the way he operates, And you saw that early on in obviously Andor season 1. I think the first couple of episodes where he wanted to follow protocol.
Yeah, it was very orderly.
There was a lot of political sort of manoeuvres happening, and they had to sort of bend the sort of truth in terms of Andor killing those 2 guards, wasn't it? And he just sees everything black and white. And the relationship he has with Dedra as well, which is I think we're going to see more of that. We've seen them sort of linking together, the last couple of episodes of season 1. A fantastic actress, Denise Gough.
I've watched you briefly there in the mass speakers. I hate it when it does that, but you're back now, Stephen.
And I think Mon Mothma is going to play the same sort of presence we got in season 1. I don't think they're going to overexpose her in any way. I don't think she's that type of character that we really need to be in every scene. Very much obviously Luthen. He's there when it counts. And he's the guide for the sort of main characters. He'll pop up when he has to, and it's the same with Mon Mothma as well.
They've got very deliberate roles, haven't they? I mean, you've got Saw Gerrera. He's operating clandestinely in these sort of caves. He's the sort of more vicious terrorist kind of figure. He's like your Che Guevara kind of character in a sort of rebellion. Whereas you've got the bureaucratic, political side of things where they can't be seen to be attached to the scum, if you like. Then you've got the go-between who's a Luthen.
Anarchist.
You've got the sort of more civilised side to a rebellion or a sort of revolution. Then you've got the nitty-gritty at the bottom. You've got the go-between with Luthen. He goes and has dialogue with Mon Mothma, then goes down and speaks to Saw Gerrera, then even further down to the likes of Andor. That's what fascinated me with that first season. Getting to see all the different variations of rebellion and how it takes a grip of people. People say enough's enough when they see all the signs of tyranny and dictatorships and just people getting pummeled into the ground for nothing. It starts with someone becoming disenfranchised and then starts rubbing off in all different facets of society. Stephen, the Cyril character's interesting because twofold really, because it shows you how you've got the rebel side of things where they become inspired to rise up. But you've also got within the heart of men and women sort of desires to lord over people. And you see it from his side. He's a kind of mummy's boy. This sort of little weasel. But he's lust for power and influence. And you see him trying desperately to gain sort of, I don't know, favour from, is it Dedra? Is that the blonde-haired Imperial character?
Yeah.
He's also
Hard nose, yeah.
Yeah, he's also obsessed with her and what she represents. So I thought that was quite interesting that you've got the opposite side to the rebellion. You see the sort of weird and wondrous characters that are drawn in, and also get that lust for power on the Imperial side of things. But with him, the reason I'm saying twofold is they went on a weird and wondrous path with him in season 1, where he was a bit of a joke figure. He was alongside your Scottish guy. It was in EastEnders. Couldn't be taken serious. He's not got a leader. He's not got a single leadership bone in his body. He's a fucking joke. He couldn't organise anything. He's got no speaking skills whatsoever. He's a bit of a joke character. He ends up back with his mother, fucking eating the Star Wars equivalent of Rice Krispies out of a bowl. We need to have something meaningful from that character in season 2. There has to be a reason why we spent so much time with that character, because they never really, I don't know, addressed what the need was for him in season 1. It just, I remember seeing him and I'm like, fuck, we're going back to this guy. Why are we going back to this guy? There has to be a rationale, and maybe you're right. Maybe he's going to flip-flop over. In some strange way.
I don't know if he'll do the Domhnall Gleeson thing, where the character will totally just flip-flop.
Yeah, that's terrible.
And not be any sort of, there's no remnants of the original character we saw in the first film, which is weird. But I think you're right, John. I think this is important. I think this is where the likes of Tony Gilroy comes in, where you've got all these sort of subplots, and they all lead into the sort of main plot. And they all have to stick the landing. I know obviously our focus is on Cassian Andor, and it's on obviously the mission and leading up to Rogue One. But as you said, there's all these other little subplots that have to be fixed. I don't think Bix Callion's going to make it out, because we don't see her again. And I think there's going to be a lot of tragedy. And I'm just looking at the cast list just now, John. There's quite a few that I forgot about, but quite a lot of them are probably part of the Empire as well, those sort of boardroom scenes.
Yeah.
And this is the thing that I'm interested in, is obviously with Ben Mendelsohn in there, which I'm glad they've got, because if they didn't have him, and I don't mean this in a disrespect to anyone else in the cast, this would be borderline Marvel Netflix stuff if they didn't do it. Yeah. Where there is that sort of gulf, and obviously a step up to the sort of main production of films and stuff like that. And there has to be those connections, there has to be those connective tissues through the likes of Ben Mendelsohn's character, and perhaps maybe we'll see Ian McDermott in a cameo as well, who knows. But they have to make these decisions. Is Vader going to appear? A lot of people say they don't need them, they probably don't need them, John, but, and I don't mean bring them in for fan service. If they're in and they're used in the correct manner, then it just kind of connects more of the dots into Rogue One as well. If they really want to make it connect, then you've got to make sure that these characters, and maybe Ben Mendelsohn is enough, maybe he is enough, and we don't need the Emperor or Vader, but it would be nice to see some kind of connective tissue, and I think we'll get that with Ben Mendelsohn. I think Mads Mikkelsen might make a cameo. Yeah,
I mean, I wouldn't mind Mikkelsen coming in, because obviously Galen, that's how you could maybe bridge it into the actual Rogue One film in some way or another. With Vader, it's always dangerous when you bring a guy of Vader's power into something like this, because we've got no other character within this series who's anywhere near his level. As soon as you start introducing Vader, it's fucking done. It's curtains for the characters. You can't compete with him, because you can just wipe out the entire cast like that.
Yeah, because everyone will just be waiting for the Vader scenes. They'll be like, come on, we need more Vader. We want more Vader.
I mean, you've seen it in Obi-Wan, Stephen, even with Obi, with Darth, with Obi-Wan, John Obi-Mikel, even with Obi-Wan, a guy of that power. I know he was on a low ebb, he didn't have connection with the Force at that point, he was depressed and all this nonsense, but he's still an important, he's a fucking general in the Clone Wars. He's a supremely powerful character. Even in his show, when you introduce Vader, you're like, fucking hell, you know he's not going to die, but you're like, Jesus Christ, shit's about to hit the fan here. And that's where Obi-Wan. There is no one of that standing in Andor. So I wouldn't want to see Darth Vader come. I wouldn't want to see like Jedis and Sith coming into it, because that's not what this show is about. It's about the nitty-gritty human side of it. We've seen the sort of operatic battle for the galaxy on the upper echelons, to be a twatty sort of pretentious speaking kind of guy. The upper echelons. We've seen the Emperor, we've seen Jedi Masters and Knights and Luke v Vader and all of these great lightsaber battles. That's been done. What we've not seen is the sort of human side to it, how it affects a little man in these forgettable little shithole planets that no one cares about, how that inspires and builds into what you see in the original trilogy.
I'm going to continue with devil's advocate here. So we've vetoed the Emperor and we've vetoed Vader. What about Governor Tarkin bringing Guy Henry back?
I would love to see Tarkin back, but again, you'd have criticism, wouldn't you, because of the whole de-aging. But I think we've came so far that it would be great. I can't get enough of Tarkin. I think Tarkin's a brilliant character. He's not so overpowered, he's just a mere mortal. But it's what he represents. He's a sort of lieutenant to the Emperor. Yeah. He's above Vader in the stakes in the Empire. But again, if you're bringing in Krennic and you bring in Tarkin, again, you're slapping Krennic down, because Krennic's a joke. So I genuinely think it will be Krennic, and that'll be it. And I think that's enough for this. Because you've got like Dedra, and you've got your man that was in fucking, was it Harry Brown, was that the name of the film? You know what I'm talking about? Your man that played the caretaker in Harry Potter, I'm blanking on his name. He's played, what's him, wasn't it? It played am I tripping? Is it somebody else entirely? The guy that was playing the sort of like Empire figure. He was the sort of, I don't know what you deem.
The old fella?
Yeah, the older guy.
I know his face, yeah.
Yeah, it's not that guy. I'm not fit. It's a different guy. He just looks like him. It's Anton Lesser.
One of your watch-alongs, you said that. I think that's him, and then you went, no, it just looks like him.
It just looks like him. Yeah, it's Anton Lesser. You've got his character in there, but he was like the villain. He was the villain in season 1. And he's just like a fucking a glorified counsellor in the grand scheme of things. So even bringing in Krennic is a massive jump up in the sort of villain stakes. So I think that's enough in the context of this, because he's such an ambitious and dangerous character that when you start introducing guys of that ilk, he's not a Tarkin, he's not a Sheaf Palpatine, but he's not about the balls off it. So you're really up there.
Because I think the character on the cast list is big enough, and especially for a web series, you've got to make every minute count. And I think if they're going to do anything, I think having obviously Krennic in there is obviously important. We know he's going to be in there. How much of a role he's going to have in this, I don't know. I don't know what his screen time's going to be. I don't think it'll be much. I honestly don't think it'll be much. In terms of Jimmy Smits playing Bail Organa again, I would say maybe cameo. Nothing more. Nothing more than a cameo. We don't really need him in there. But it's just nice. It's nice to have that sort of connective tissue to Rogue One in terms of a cameo. And the same with Galen Erso, Mads Mikkelsen, just a cameo. Just something very brief. It doesn't have to be anything overpowering or anything like that, because I don't think they're going to utilise Krennic that much.
See, with Krennic, Stephen, do you think that with Krennic they could go down a different direction with him and make him a slightly an even more sinister and serious figure? Because again, in Rogue One, he was serious for the most part, but then he did become a kind of caricature villain. Yeah.
But we're getting back to that period where he's ambitious.
Yeah, so you can make him an even more sort of malevolent character in this TV show and make him really fucking someone to fear. I'd be interested to see how they're going to frame that character, because you're seeing him in the context of Tarkin and Vader and all these sort of powerful figures within the Empire. But with all due respect to Cassian Andor and Luthen, outside of Mon Mothma, these people are not on his level. So if he comes in, he should be seen from a different sort of perspective. He should be a more serious and feared sort of figure. I find it fascinating how they're going to do this, because for the entire first season, and I've searched up the idiom, because I'm a fucking, again, pretentious twatty git at times when it comes to English, but purely because I do butcher sayings a lot. Loose lips sink ships. That was the sort of villain in season 1. The actual Rebel Alliance themselves try to get together and be a sort of coherent opposition to the Empire. And just them giving it
I mean,
away and speaking to the wrong people, that was a kind of true threat in it.
natural, though, Dan. It's natural to go against the establishment, and the establishment in this case being the Empire. You know, and you've got all these pockets of resistance, i.e. the rebels, which have not really formed yet. And there's going to be mistrust. There's going to be people living in fear, anxiety of the Empire, and you know, treason's a big thing. You know, it's not to be taken lightly. So you can understand people's hesitation for what to start a revolution or whatever you may want to call it.
Seen it with Mon
But we know
Mothma
that's
and her
what it's
husband.
doing anyway. But it's just seeing the sort of mechanics of how it's formed is the most interesting thing. And I think they did that really well in season 1 with all the sort of backstabbing and double bluffing and, you know, mysterious shops that are set up for meetings. And
Luthen was great, man, with his disguises and the way he was kind of putting on a front, then he'd go into the back of that sort of, I don't know, was it an antique kind of shop or like collector's sort of gallery, and then immediately his face would change. It's just fucking great. I love that shit. I love sort of dual characters, schizophrenic kind of characters, the likes of Bruce Wayne and Batman, obviously Oliver Queen and Arrow, is it? I can't remember. I love that kind of stuff where you've got them putting on a front and you get to see the full extent of their character, but people within the universe haven't got a clue. I just love it when they do stuff like that. But bringing in...
I mean, that's why you get someone like Stellan Skarsgård.
Exactly, Stephen, unbelievable actor.
That has to pull that off and, you know, and change their persona, change their whole body movement and their speech, their tone, everything just changes, you know, and you saw that, John, in season 1, and that was one of the things that I really enjoyed, was the sort of mysterious nature of his character. Because, I mean, it's good looking in hindsight now, but at the time you're thinking, can this guy be trusted? Has he got other intentions? You know, Mon Mothma was sort of the White Knight. You know, you knew her intentions because you saw her in Return of the Jedi, and you saw her in those sort of deleted scenes from Revenge of the Sith. But so you knew that character enough to know that her intentions were good, and they were always good. But with this character and Luthen, it was there's some darkness about him as well, but for good reason as well. And you know what he had to fight, and I think it was the speech he was talking about. He's got this the battles in his mind as well. It's not just a physical
there was
thing.
A great line, wasn't there? You fight for a dawn you'll never see, or something like that. There was just an unbelievable line. I remember it. I was like, wow, what a fucking sentence that is. You've just actually said. It's incredible how far the writings came in 40 years in Star Wars. Of course, we've not got that calibre on any other TV show. It's really just Tony Gilroy and the writing team at Andor who seem to get it, which is ironic because they're not Star Wars fans. Well, Tony's not, and he's admitted he ain't no Star Wars fan, but he seems to have a knack of producing high calibre Star Wars content. So maybe...
You can take a step back, John, and tell it from a storytelling point of view rather than a fan service point of view. Where shoehorn this person and shoehorn that. But I mean, there was some of that in Rogue One, I suppose, with he doesn't like you, that character coming in, you're like, why is he there?
I think that was it, Gareth Edwards, so I'm blaming him for that. Obviously, don't choke your ambitions or something like that. That was terrible, wasn't it? I mean, I know Vader had previews for that, but that was fucking... That was one of the...
Yeah, there was one of
the cringe
some
parts.
Really howlers in there, John, but I think, I suppose, you know, talking about the series from the sort of front side of the camera is one thing which we've done. I think we've covered enough, but from behind the scenes, behind the camera now, John, the production and obviously the franchise itself, I think it's something we need to talk about in terms of Lucasfilm going forward, because that is obviously our headline, talking about is this the last great product we're going to get out of Star Wars? Because it seems to be that they've obviously done the Obi-Wan series, which was great, and it's mined off the original stuff. We've obviously got the Ahsoka stuff that's been mined off original stuff. Mandalorian, to an extent as well, has been mined off original stuff, and this is the sort of last sort of product that's been mined off the original trilogy as well. It's where they're going after this. It's a concerning thing. Not for me, I couldn't give a shit.
Stephen, I says to you, didn't I, that I could potentially be checking out a Star Wars after this, because that's where I'm at. In all reality, though, it will probably be after the Mandalorian film, because I'm invested, even though Mandalorian Season 3 wasn't as good as the first two, and I'm completely Bobby Grogu. I just am. it's to the point where I'm wishing violence on the little guy, and it's not right. Because he's just an innocent little character that's trying to carve out his own sort of path in the galaxy, but I'm just bored with him. I'm deeply resentful of the fact that he's stripped as a lone gunslinger kind of character, which is what we were sold with The Mandalorian. And when he finally got shot at him and he was away with Luke, I'm like, finally we're going to get back to what we were supposed to be doing. Because Stephen, in my mind, I know we're going off piste here, in my mind The Mandalorian was the Boba Fett project we never got.
Yeah.
Obviously, Lucas was going to do sort of underworld, criminal underworld, and Boba Fett was going to be one of the primary figures. And you're going to get to see that gritty bounty hunter kind of thing. That's what I thought we were getting with The Mandalorian. Sadly, we went down the rabbit hole with Grogu, and I blame the fan base for that because they bought into the character. And Disney seen the pound signs or the dollar signs and thought, fuck it, we'll just go with him and give them more of that. But I digress. Despite how shite I thought season 3 was at times, I still am invested enough. I want to see how that TV universe plays out. The likes of Boba Fett, Boba, as I think your man calls him, or says his name. The Mandalorian, obviously Ahsoka, all those characters are coming together to face off against, blank on his name, Jesus Christ. Fucking bluefucker. Why am I blanking on his name? Jesus, man. I keep wanting to say Tarkin. Blanking on his fucking name. Holy shit. Grand Moff, that's Grand Moff Tarkin. Grand Admiral Thrawn. Christ almighty, I couldn't think of his name there. I want to see how that's playing out as well. So after that, I'll probably check out. But see, to be honest with you, those combined TV shows are not on the level of Andor. They're different. They're sort of catering to a wide demographic there. The more crowd-pleasing, action, high-octane, friendly kind of stuff that you've got with Star Wars in the main. But Andor is a more serious adult kind of, I don't know, oriented TV show. Yeah. And that's the one I'm more drawn to. So I'm probably going to check out after, so I don't really give a shit either way, whether it's the last great thing they produce.
Lucasfilm are in a sort of, between a rock and a hard place after Andor because they've stuck to the sort of safe formula of linking their films to the original saga, and they've done that to an extent with the web series as well, and get criticism for it for not thinking out the box. And then when they do a show like The Acolyte, which is not directly connected to anything other than obviously the last scene with, I think, Plagueis, they don't really, criticism for that as well, that there's no connective. I think most of the criticism was the writing more than anything, but and some of the acting.
It's the political stuff as well they're injecting, and everything's politicised.
But obviously from a sort of in front of the camera stuff as well, not just obviously the stuff that works in the background with obviously the agendas and stuff like that, John. But my point being is that if they were to do something with maybe, and it's playing safe again, but if they want to play it safe and they want to have another web series of interest for everyone, perhaps maybe a Palpatine in his sort of rise to where he became in the Phantom Menace would be something that would be of interest. But again, it's just something that they don't want to do. I think Andor was of Gilroy and Favreau and Filoni, and obviously John Knoll, who obviously was the guy behind Rogue One that came up with obviously fleshing out the opening crawl of A New Hope into an actual feature film, and then from that we got the web series stuff. But it's really where they go with they just don't seem to know what they're doing in terms of films. It's been 6 years since the Rise of Skywalker now, and there's nothing in the works. I don't even think they've started any kind of filming or writing any scripts or anything for the films. Everything's just talk. Everything's just...
But according to Kathleen Kennedy, Stephen, all of the shelved projects are still live and active. They can be reignited at any time. None of them have been cancelled. There's no blame for Kathleen whatsoever. Someone put that criticism to her. What about all the chopping and changing and failed projects, ones that have been canned? What do you mean? I'm paraphrasing, but she basically says there's no canned projects, they're all still there, and it can change at a moment's notice. Fucking bullshit. Stephen, until you get rid of her, just done. You're in purgatory with Star Wars. You need to get shot of her as the creative sort of producing force at Lucasfilm, because she has got an agenda for everything. We have to get away from this. I think the world's starting to wake up from the whole cancel culture bollocks. They're realising that humans, by their very nature, are flawed beings. They make mistakes at times. Also, there's certain things you make mistakes with you can't come back from. Like if you're a nonce or something like that, or you're a murderer, there's no coming back from that. That's you're done. But for other things, if you make mistakes in life, you should be able to right the wrongs and come back and have a redemption arc. We've seen that with likes of Robert Downey Jr., Mel Gibson to an extent. People have come back and had a career. And we're thankfully getting away from that. I think the next logical evolution, waking up in society, starting to mature hopefully, is getting away from the political indoctrination, constantly hammering fucking people with overly politicised bollocks, introducing all these stupid things into every single TV show or film that comes out. No one cares about it. It's a tiny minority of people on the planet that care about it.
You just don't care about it in film.
No.
You know, there is things that, that some people may class as woke that perhaps maybe you and I do agree with, but it doesn't have a place in film and storytelling in film. The point of film, and one of the biggest points of film and creating worlds, and for the audience's point of view, is to escape, the real world. It's to forget about your troubles for a couple of hours, and all they're doing is reminding you of the problems in the world with these sort of agendas. It's became so stale that and predictable that you just expect it now. But I don't go out my road to be offended. I don't go out my road to, I watched Geeks and Gamers, John, the other day, and he made a video, Jeremy made a video of, I've just walked out of Snow White.
Yeah.
Of course you fucking did. We knew you were going to do that.
But Jeremy, it's not for you, mate. No. And I'm baffled by these sort of middle-aged guys who are going in to watch a Snow White film and then confused why it's not connecting with them. It's not designed for you. You're not the target demographic for fucking Snow White. It's not for a middle-aged guy. It's just not. It's for younger people. Now, Stephen, we spoke about it. I try to give the film the benefit of the doubt. I'm very much an honest and straightforward guy. I've tried to defend Rachel Ziegler in the past as well. I know we're going off-piste, because I thought some of the abuse she got was a bit OTT.
Well, perhaps it is.
She didn't fucking help herself.
Yeah.
You do not help yourself when you start making stupid statements in the press. There should be an NDA, is that what it is? A Non-Disclosure Act for a clause in NDC that should be placed into an actor's sort of contract when they sign up for these kind of films. Keep your views and your sort of politics and beliefs away until you're done filming. Because all you're doing is ruining the box office. These are multi-million-dollar movies.
It didn't stop Jim Carrey and Kick-Ass 2.
Oh, I know, but that was fucking ridiculous as well, Stephen. I mean, he knew what those films were all about, and then he goes off and goes on about gun violence and not hating violence in films. Why the fuck did you sign up to go into a Kick-Ass film then? You know what it's all about. That's what I'm talking about. From both sides of the political sort of spectrum, just try to hammer home their sort of ideals and their beliefs before filming, during the filming, in the press junkets after the filming. Just keep it away. It's nonsense. You're doing yourself no favours when you start making stupid fucking statements. You're pissing off and alienating the core fan base of Star Wars, of Snow White, of anything, when you start coming out with these controversial statements. It's a disease, Stephen. It really is a disease. The world is broken. It's became tribalistic in every single fucking facet of life, be it politics itself, art, football and sports have always been tribalistic. That's what they're built on. It's my team, I support them, I hate them. But it's just infecting society. And it is a minority of people that gave this sort of
became
metaphorical mic on social media to share their views, and it's just it makes people think that it's a bigger problem, Stephen, but the vast majority of people don't give a shit about these things. They just want to go into a theatre or sit down in front of a TV and watch well-written content. That's all they want. They don't want politics. They don't, unless it's a political film or TV show, fair enough. But if it's Star Wars or it's a Disney live-action remake, we don't fucking want politics. We don't want this shite getting injected into it. We just want to watch
John.
good quality content.
Well, that's what this YouTube channel's all about. It doesn't matter if it's Marvel, if it's DC, if it's a Republican, if it's a Democrat. We're not interested in that. We want to be entertained. Movie burner entertainment, that's the clue. And John, you're absolutely right. And you see, I think social media has got a big part to play in all this in terms of people's conditioning and the way they sort of think now. Their sort of thought process is all about comparing things, putting something up against something. And it's always, since obviously the sort of the birth of social media, it's the way it's been across X and Facebook and all that, where you can create a group on Facebook that's dedicated to Henry Cavill, and you can celebrate it, but you'll get the James Gunn fans coming in and want to take them on, and vice versa. You'll get obviously the new Superman film is inundated. These groups that are celebrating the new film is inundated with Snyder fans, and all becomes, as you said, tribalistic.
Seen it with the Beatles.
I grew up, John.
I'm Team John. I'm Team George. It's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, fuck that shit. I mean, just enjoy what was there. John, we're in a period in terms of comic book, and we have been for the last 15 or so years, that I would have dreamed of as a kid. All this content coming from DC and this content coming from Marvel, it's not always good, but it was stuff that I dreamed of as a kid. We got Christopher Reeve growing up, John. We got Lou Ferrigno and Bill Bixby as Incredible Hulk, and Nicholas Hammond as the Amazing Spider-Man TV series, and it was all we had.
Yeah.
I just think a lot of people are acting like spoiled bastards now. There's so much content, they can't appreciate it anymore, and they put each sort of franchise up against each other. Whether it be Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, it's garbage. It really is garbage, and it's the same with Star Wars. Star Wars isn't any different. People will compare series, they'll compare characters, who's the best.
Yeah.
And you saw that kind of seeping into The Rise of Skywalker, where there was this narrative, that Leia was the one. It wasn't Luke, it was Leia, and
I mean, that was Kathleen Kennedy.
That real shit. I loved the strengths of Leia, and Princess Leia I'm going to call her, because that was her fucking name, that was her title.
She was a politician, Stephen. She never wanted the Force.
Fantastic character, and she served a purpose in that story, and you saw her strengths come through, and the way she was written from a political angle and a
Stephen,
combat.
The twins were supposed to be a sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Manifestation of the mother and the father of Queen Amidala and of obviously Anakin. Anakin was this sort of precocious talent in the Force. He was the one. And Amidala was this sort of political force of nature, youngest sort of queen and political figure in the galaxy. Leia was supposed to represent the mother, and Luke was supposed to represent, obviously, Anakin.
It's the other way around now.
And they're trying to contort it. It's fucking really simple when you think about it. Try to pull it.
Luke had the soft side of his mother, and Leia had the hard-nosed side.
Yeah, they both had elements of each other. But Leia deliberately, she wasn't aware of the Force and the power she could have, but she pursued a career in politics. And Luke, obviously, with the guidance of Ben on Tatooine, became a Jedi. They weren't meant to. I mean, Luke wasn't meant to become this sort of political figure, and Leia just completely ignoring her political career and get off and get training from Luke to become a Jedi. That wasn't the purpose of the characters, but again, I'm blaming Kathleen for this. I'm sorry, it is her. She's got an absolute hard-on for Luke. It's completely undeniable. And just want to kick the character in the balls constantly, to the point where you've got him getting beat by Leia in a training session, or whatever the fuck that was. It's like, come on.
Him. Yeah, she floored him. Yeah.
Luke is a Jedi master at this point. The guy's a master. What the fuck is going on here? It just shouldn't be happening. To me, that sums up the poison that is Kathleen Kennedy within Lucasfilm, and the poisonous influence she's had on Star Wars.
We saw in Act 2 as well, Rey taking Luke on to the point where he fell backwards. He managed to stop himself from hitting the rocks.
Yeah, I
but
always thought that was deliberate though. He was like,
Yeah.
because the fact he did stop himself, it's like, that's a little known glance almost to the camera, breaking the fourth wall. Did you see what I did there? She thought she was knocking me over, but I'm that powerful. I actually broke my landing with the force. He's like, I'm in control the whole time. I'm not having
I don't
that.
know if that was the intent of Kathleen Kennedy though. So
Well, hopefully Ryan Johnson stepped in and dealt with that. Was the Last Jedi, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. But Stephen, in terms of getting back to the question, is this the last? What was the question? At this point, I've lost the plot. Again, that was
basically, is this the last great product
Star Wars
to come
kind of
from
TV show or product? Yeah.
Star Wars, yeah.
I think it could be. Because like you said, they've got a problem once they start stepping away from the Skywalker saga and everything that interconnects into that. Star Wars isn't like Marvel, it's not like DC, it's not like these sort of comic book institutions where you've got 70 years of storytelling and characters to go and mine off of. It's very much reverse engineered out of 3 films in the 70s and the 80s.
Yeah.
And once you drop away from the mind of Lucas and what he had in store for Vader and Tarkin and Palpatine and obviously Anakin and Luke and Leia and all these characters, there's nothing. There's no creative figure, or figures, plural, who are going to come in and fill the void. And we got it to an extent where was it Timothy Zahn that did it? With the Thrawn duology, we had Mara Jade, we had interesting characters introduced. And there's some really interesting characters in the expanded universe. But they just flat out refuse to acknowledge those stories exist. I shat on them at times. There was some ridiculous fucking nonsense in those expanded universe novels. Lando giving hot chocolate to Luke on the rooftop and he's getting insomnia. It's like, what the fuck is this? Bullshit. But there's some really interesting characters. They flat out refuse to go and mine off of them. Kathleen Kennedy says there's no sort of lore to mine off of. They've got nothing. They have to start from scratch. You don't. You've got hundreds of books. Some of them are brilliant. Some of the art piss all over the sequel trilogy.
The lore that exists in the expanded universe didn't suit her agenda more than anything.
Well, I mean, Luke married to Mara Jade, 2 powerful Force characters. There's your powerful female Force user right there. And it's a character. Guess what? 90% of the fan base adore, male or female, love Mara Jade. I love Mara Jade. Really interesting character. Brilliant backstory. She was a sort of Force user who was at the right-hand side of the Emperor. Right up until the fall of the Death Star.
John, you said it yourself earlier on that Kathleen Kennedy's issue with Luke Skywalker would have put that to bed because of obviously the relationship that they had in expanded universe. If you have more Mara Jade, you have more Luke Skywalker. You know, and I think that's the issue, obviously, of not using that opportunity, because there was speculation, John, at the end of the Luke was standing at a grave, you know, and we all speculated, was it perhaps maybe Mara Jade that was, you know, that was a burial place, you know.
Well, Stephen, the reason they don't want to follow that is because they've got that in mind for Rey. They want to recreate Luke's sort of post Return of the Jedi story arc, but do it with Rey. It's like the whole Terminator Dark Fate thing again, where you've got John Connor, you've got Edward Furlong, but you don't want to use him. So you kill him off, because that's what the fans want to see, and then you introduce this random, nondescript fucking Hispanic actor doing the exact same thing as John Connor, but no one gives a shit about the character because they've not bonded with it over 3, 4, 5 films. They don't give a fucking shit. But you hammer it into them anyway. That's
I think Lucasfilm are delusional enough to think that we have invested enough time with Rey, and we haven't.
No, we've not. She's not a likeable character.
No.
She's just not. Of the 3 young actors, I say young because I mean, she was already mid-20s or something when they shot The Force Awakens. Is that really young? I don't know. I suppose it is. But of her, Boyega, and fucking blank on his name again, Oscar Isaac.
Oscar Isaac, yeah.
She is the worst of the 3. And look, again, if you had intent in hammering home some sort of political message, I mean, I personally don't have an issue with representation in films, it's just the way they utilise it. But if you had intent in having some sort of representation and you want a person who's not some white character, fucking Snow White, Casper the Ghost white character in a leading role, John Boyega, brilliant actor, charismatic, likeable guy off the screen, brilliant actor on the screen, really interesting story arc. Could have made him the Jedi character, the main actor, but because he's a guy, doesn't matter, can't have it. There's so many missed opportunities. Oscar Isaac's a fucking brilliant actor. We're going to kill him off in the first film. To keep him alive, he's the Harrison Ford of the sequel
Kept him
trilogy.
alive to belittle him
To do
in the next
nothing.
one.
Nothing with
Yeah.
the character. He does nothing. And they do nothing in the whole sequel trilogy, so it's a complete waste of fucking time and hundreds of millions. But Stephen, getting back to it, I think the only way this ain't going to be the best thing they produce and the last great thing they produce is if they do get someone on who sees sense, knows what they're doing in the position of president of Lucasfilm. Follow the sort of guidance of a Tony Gilroy. I've said for years we need a Star Wars person who's a big fan. I don't think you do. Look at what Gilroy's doing with Andor. Look what he did with Rogue One. He came in and saved it. Bring in a non-Star Wars mind who's just competent at project managing and getting good writers and people in place and build something and start off with creating a fucking Luke Skywalker TV show while Sebastian Stan is still in the age range to do it. We dropped the ball with Mark Hamill in the 90s. For fuck's sake, don't do it again. You've got a guy that looks the spitting image of him. He's in his 40s. He's got 15 years minimum of storytelling time that would lead right into the sequel trilogy if you're intent in keeping that there.
Well, you've got to be careful as well with longevity as well. And I know a lot of people are talking about Favreau and Filoni, and at some point they're going to be burnt out. It's very much like Kevin Feige, at the stage Kevin Feige is with Marvel at the moment. I think burnout with. I don't think the same enthusiasm's there, and that's only in any job you do or any sort of project that you take on. You'll put your heart and soul and your energy into it, but it can't last forever. So you need someone that's going to come in, like you said, that's perhaps maybe fresh, maybe not the biggest Star Wars film, but give them a general sort of template of the timeline. This is where these films happened, this is where... And advise them on the expanded universe and say, mind from these and can we do it right? No agendas, nothing to do with real world issues or anything like that. And try and remind us why we fell in love with Star Wars in the first place. It was great escapism. In the words of Alec Guinness, it's a fairy tale fantasy space opera.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what it should remain. You know, I think they've forgot about that.
What you need to remember as well, Stephen, is Kathleen Kennedy's the president. She's meant to be overseeing. She's a project manager, a glorified project manager. She's meant to be picking the talent to produce the films and the TV shows, and then you get the writers and the actors, and you create a sort of creative universe after that. She isn't meant to be getting involved in it. She's meant to be sitting like a sort of omnipotent being away from it, just making sure it's all ticking along. But because she simply can't help herself, I'm presuming, but I'm not presuming because I fucking know, because my eyes don't lie, and I've seen it for the last 10 years nearly. She is clearly incapable of not going in and interjecting and manipulating things and changing things, for me, for the worst. I mean, look at the whole Obi-Wan thing. We could have three movies.
That was the one that came into my head there right away, with obviously the exposure Leia character had.
And rewrote the whole script.
Kathleen Kennedy written all over it.
Rewrote the entire script. We originally were supposed to have movies that were going to show you the mental state of Obi-Wan. It was going to go right into the psyche of the guy. Unbelievable process. The guy who was on Star Wars Theory, who was involved in writing, I forget what his name is, but it was really interesting. He was going to go through, it was like 3 acts showing you where the guy was. He was disconnected, he was disillusioned, and then he would slowly build himself up. Then you'd have the culmination of a fight against Vader. Instead, what we get is this sort of 10 episode or whatever the fuck it was, mini-series, and it's more about Leia as a 10-year-old running away from adults, which makes no sense. The slowest fucking chase in the history of film. Just pish. There was moments I liked, but in the main pish.
They repeat that. They repeat that issue in the films as well, John. Obviously, they want to take a narrative with something that's, you know, that's fresh and new in their own heads, and what they don't realise is they're sort of souring the original content of the original trilogy. We saw it with the Anakin's arc. It was totally whitewashed by the time we got to the Rise of Skywalker. Total pointless exercise, Vader sacrificing himself in a way in episode 6. And it's the same with the Obi-Wan series as well, where they're building up a relationship between Obi-Wan and Leia. which would work fine if A New Hope never existed. But there's no relationship between Ben and Leia in A New Hope, other than you served my father during the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
She doesn't know him. She does not know him enough in A New Hope, but seems to have this relationship and this journey they go on.
And that she's 10 during the
maybe
events of
about,
Obi-Wan.
was it 8 years before A New Hope? Doesn't make any sense.
People remember things that happened when they were 10. I remember going back to when I was 3.5, 4.
Yeah.
So there's no way she wouldn't remember getting on that journey with Obi-Wan. It's a fucking nonsense. It's just, again, politicised, agenda-driven nonsense. And you need to get away from it. You need to get rid of the likes of Kathleen Kennedy. Replace them with competent people. I'd even take Tony Gilroy at this point. I think he's more of a writer, sort of director, producer, though. I don't think he's interested in doing that. But we need to get someone of that ilk who's disconnected from it, and then you can bring Star Wars people in to manage the actual projects individually, TV shows and films. Get back to making interesting content. But Stephen, overall, they're going to have a problem no matter what, because like I says, there isn't stories to mine out of. You're going to have to create interesting new stories, new characters, new worlds, and different timelines that are not linked to Luke Skywalker, Anakin, Vader, the Emperor, Tatooine, every fucking time. And I just don't think you've got the creative minds. My dog's shaking his head. He's got a creative mind. You've not got the creative people on the planet now to actually make something happen. I just don't see how we get away from it and create interesting enough stories. My dog's killing me here, pushing my chair. Can you hear him? You actually hear him? Forcibly snorting and pushing me. Fucking, honestly, never get a Labrador. You don't want a Velcro dog. That's the big problem for Star Wars. Proving they can move away from the Skywalker saga and have brilliant minds who can create stories that connect that have not got ulterior motives. I just don't see it happening. And ultimately, that's why I think Andor will be the last great thing that they produce. Because
come the 22nd of April, I will sit down.
Fucking Rengo, mate.
Obviously, we'll be watching this as a watch along on the channel, or maybe perhaps on Patreon. We've not decided yet, but we will sit and watch this. And when it comes to those closing credits in the very last episode of Andor, I will raise a Star Wars and to Lucasfilm of the past and say, you had a good innings, but it's a done deal. It's done. You know.
Yeah, I'm not interested in seeing any more Star Wars films, Stephen. I'm just not. I've had enough of it. I really do regret George doing what he did. Back in the day, if you told me in 2015 or whatever, 2013, when was it announced that they were 2012? If you told me back then that I'd be missing George, I mean, to be fair, I probably would have, because I'm one of the few people who actually quite like to see the prequel trilogy. I never was one of these people that shat on it. There was elements I didn't like, but I grew up. I was the target demographic for the prequels.
I think George, I don't think he's the best judge of character, as we've seen obviously the last sort of 10, 15 years have unfolded, John. But you know, he had the likes of Dave Filoni in high regard. Seen his sort of capabilities are just not quite there to be leading in Lucasfilm. And the same with Pablo Hidalgo as well. Those kind of comments round about the time Star Wars Theory was...
Yeah, that was ludicrous. Yeah.
And, you know, and you know, the mask has definitely slipped with a lot of people. I thought perhaps maybe have been, you know, I would have suggested and said they would have been good for Star Wars and good for Lucasfilm, but I'm not really sure about that now.
Stephen, I don't know about you, but when that moment happened with Luke at the end of The Mandalorian, was it season 2? Yeah, that was epic. I was getting goosebumps. I wasn't crying, but I can totally understand. Certainly someone like Theory, who's basically his entire life, he's fucking dedicated it to Star Wars and to some extent. I can understand why it hit him so emotionally, because Luke means a lot to people. To me, he is Star Wars. He is the sort of embodiment of Star Wars. It's such a universal story. It just cuts through all the bollocks we've seen in the last 10 years with the agendas. You need to have a strong female to empower young girls and women. No, you don't. There's loads of women and young girls connected with Luke, because it's a universal human story. He came from nothing, he became the hero. He had obstacles in his way. He found out his father was one of the most vile figures on Earth, but he never lost hope and ultimately brought them back and redeemed them. That's a universal story.
If you stop
He
at
means
6,
so much to people. Look, he's such an important character. I never understood that nonsense from Hidalgo. Taking pot shots at someone for getting emotional at seeing Luke again. A ridiculous fucking thing. But again, that's what you've got
coming from
within
someone with that
Lucasfilm.
knowledge, John. Someone with that knowledge has invested a lot of time in Star Wars. There's no doubt about it. So he really should know. He really should know the feelings of certain characters to certain audiences, you know, and particularly the Luke Skywalker character and what it meant to a lot of people. And to be that flippant, I don't know if it was a box ticking exercise to keep him within the sort of inner sanctum of Kathleen Kennedy's Lucasfilm, which I think it was.
It's ludicrous though, because he's clearly the biggest Star Wars channel on YouTube.
Yeah.
And he represents, let's be honest, the vast majority of Star Wars fans are usually upper young to middle-aged guys. That's always been the sort of fandom. I'm not saying there's no women love Star Wars. There's loads of women love Star Wars, but in the main, it's male-heavy. So why you would be actively going out your way to insult people who are literally the fucking representation of your fan base is mind-blowing. It's so fucking self...
Yeah, it's a risky strategy, John.
So destructive.
You know, and I think it doesn't mean I don't understand what they're trying to achieve. I don't agree with it. You know, what they're trying to achieve is that they are trying to get away from that fan base. You know, the fan base that basically supported the franchise for decades. They're trying to move away from that sort of period to move it forward. But there's a way of doing that. We get obviously audiences age and they pass on, and then it's the next generation you've got to sort of make sure you're catering to. But there's a way of doing that, and the way they've done it has been so jarring at times. It's been off-putting to the point where people are just not interested anymore. You know, and as I said, it was a risk that they thought was worth taking, but it's not paid off.
No. And it's going to be their undoing, ultimately.
Yeah.
Because you can't make $1 billion, $2 billion at the box office without the 70%, whatever it is. I'd have to look up the actual stats, demographic of Star Wars fans that are sort of male-oriented or male-dominated. If you not get them there, you're pissing them off. You're making director choices. So I've come out with ridiculous statements saying I like to make men sweat and uncomfortable when they watch my films. When you start putting people like that in charge of projects, you're doomed. You're not going to make any money. And let's be honest, I looked at the budget for Andor alone, the 2 seasons, $600 million. It's a lot of fucking money you're spending. So if you're spending it, I'm going to kill my dog, by the way, he's licking. I'm going to fucking murder him. If you bear with me, I need to throw something to put him off. I'm going to kill this fucker. If you're pissing them off, man, you're not going to make money. And this is where they keep making the mistakes. They're spending more and more money on these budgets, and they're just dying at the box office. Snow White, I think it was about 500 million. How the fuck can you make 500 million back? You can't. It's impossible. Anyway, Stephen, look at that poster, man. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, man. That is incredible. I'd love that on my wall. I'm not going to lie. That is something special.
It's a contrast, isn't it?
Yeah.
They're very good at doing that. Lucasfilm, to be fair to them, their movie posters are always good, and so's the web series as well. And you're seeing the contrast between good and evil here. There's no sort of middle ground. This is what Star Wars has to get back to. It has to get back to the good versus evil, the light versus dark, and cut all the bollocks out in the middle. And that's what this poster kind of represents. There's nothing in the middle. It's split down the middle, and that, you know, you're either on one side or the other, and that's what I like.
Very, very cool poster. I'm looking forward to it, man. I really am looking forward to that TV show. I hope it's a success. I hope we can stick the landing. I've got supreme confidence that Gilroy is a good enough writer with obviously enough knowledge on the characters from Rogue One, Season 1, to make it happen. I think he will stick the landing. I think it will be absolutely brilliant. Like Season 1, if not better, because it has to be more frenetic, tighter. There's no room for error. Yeah. I just hope we get all the right figures coming back. I'd like to see Serkis come back. I'd like to see closure for that character. Hopefully he's not bit the bullet. Be brilliant to see Mads Mikkelsen back again. Going to be good to see, obviously, Ben Mendelsohn back. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, can't wait.
But I think that's going to round it up. Unless you've got anything else to say.
Oh, I'm done. I'm bumped out.
What's your thoughts on Andor? Thoughts on that trailer? Thoughts on the season to come? Will it be the last great Disney project that they'll send out? I'm just going to say TV show because arguably, well, I mean, you could say film as well because it is connected to Rogue One. Let's be honest, it's, what's the word? Symbiotically. Is that the right word? Symbiotic, is that? I always think of Venom when I think of that symbiotic alien. They're connected. So I think, do you think it's going to be the last great project that Disney puts out with Star Wars on it? I personally think it is. I think they're screwed. I don't know where they go moving on because I've got no idea what they're doing, and their president has got a constant ulterior motive and agenda that she has to put into every single project. Thankfully, Tony Gilroy says, get that to fuck out of my projects, it's not happening, and that's why Andor is what it is. Straight cut, great writing, brilliant Star Wars project, no ulterior motives, no bollocks, no filler, all killer. But what's your thoughts anyway? Share your thoughts down below in the comments section. Like the video if you've enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon to get the notifications straight to your eyes on YouTube. Same thing over on Twitch, follow button, notifications button over there. And all that's left to be said is until I